Hey everybody, hi, I welcome you all to the Baseline show in India. We do this every Saturday at 6 p.m. And thanks so much for making it today. We were late by a couple of minutes. We had a technical glitch. Uh, so sorry about that, but I see there are 9 people waiting, and thanks so much for making it on time. So today happens to be, today promises to be one of the most bombastic episodes that I've had on Baseline Show India. Kyle Thomas is here, and he will be walking us through, how do we get started baselining? Because I did, we've been doing baseline shows since July for the Indian community as well. People have hopped on to the idea of why do they need baseline and what's the value it brings for various industries. We've had many speakers, we've done various talks. Me and Mark also have in the past spoken about insurance, healthcare, and other industries, various use cases. And then over a period of time, we reached a stage where we started talking about how do people get started, how do people hop on the baseline bus. So this episode happens to be an anchor for to answer those questions. And of course, Kyle has some really interesting releases to make today. Thank you so much, Kyle. I feel privileged that you bring those updates for the Indian community. So yeah, and I do call Kyle the OG of baseline, the original gangsta. Thank you so much, Kyle, once again for waking up and this morning and walking us through all this. So yeah, take it away. Let the baselining begin.
Sure. So yeah, thanks for having me, Samrat. Appreciate it. Let me share my screen here.
Should we start with the code "Don't lie"? Because I think this is happening for the first time on India show.
I think we can definitely do that.
Cool.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
I made some slides for today. Um, I'm Kyle. I'm just a humble blockchain entrepreneur trying to change the world. Um, Provide is this what I would now call this enterprise blockchain visionary. We've survived a couple of bear attacks, and we've architected the baseline protocol and base ledger. Really, if you understand Provide still, but we're working on that, and really demand is really starting to pick up and grow, which is really exciting to see. Provide is the future of enterprise middleware. We're working with some really big organizations as a result of our investment in the baseline community. You should join the community. It's an amazing place. Just some very awesome organizations that we're working with. So code don't lie, right? So the Provide stack, if you're not familiar, it is a collection of microservices that do different things. You have service for identity. It's called Ident. You have this sort of Swiss Army knife for Web3 called Inchain. You have a vault for key management, and a privacy service essentially for abstracting away a lot of the complexities around ZKPs. And then you have some other open source projects that sort of underpin those. You have Nats, Postgres, and Redis, and then a little VM that you also. It's a sort of walkthrough, that code bases. You can see those at github.com/provide platform. So we're going to be talking about Ident, as I mentioned, Inchain, Vault.
So people should go to GitHub.
GitHub.com. So these repos are at github.com/provide platform. But what you can see is and I'll get to this in just a second. You have in-chain vault, ident, in-chain vault, privacy, and then we have another container called Baseline that is still closed, but we're going to be opening it up seemingly any day. This was one of the repos that we held back from the open source community just because we've been working on getting it up to speed with the standard that we collaborated with Andreas Freund and others from the community on. So you have those sort of 5 core containers that represent, the baseline stack for each party. And then there's some other good repos that you should look at as well. Just very quickly to mention the provide Go, there's a provide CLI. There's even a provide Rust client now that we've been working on, which is just an API written in Rust. And we've got shout out to the tree. There's also like SSL. That's an alt code, but it shows off baselining. If you go to the find repo, EA.com/EA-OA-baseline, you will find a lot of stuff. If you go to the example group and BRI1 and basic example, you will find.
Mark, do you hear Kyle properly? Because I'm having issues hearing Kyle properly.
I am too, yeah.
Yeah? With you? Yeah. So Kyle, we hear a robotic voice.
What?
Oh, now you're back. Go ahead.
Where did you leave off?
I think about 10 seconds ago.
Oh, okay. So maybe around the time when I was showing like provide Go. So you have these 5 core repos that I mentioned, including the baseline repo, and then you have some other like API clients, such as a Golang client. There's a JavaScript client. There's our CLI. There's even a Rust client that's a full Rust API client that implements the APIs, all of the APIs for these different services, including baseline. So you have a bunch of different clients or different API clients. Those are very useful. And I also gave a shout out to Baselie. This is the Shuttle Excel repo is an awesome example of using the baseline protocol with Microsoft Excel. So if you look in the baseline repo, which is at EEA-Oasis/baseline, you will see, and I'm on the BRI1 privacy branch, but we need to merge this branch, frankly. But if you look under the baseline, so if you look under that repo, and you go to examples, BRI1 base example, you'll see sort of this implementation, the BRI1 reference implementation. Let's see, that really illustrates how 2 parties, Alice and Bob, use the provide stack that I just shared, plus the baseline container, to go about inviting one another. Like Bob creates a work group and invites Alice, and then they agree upon a circuit and begin baselining essentially. And so let me show you how that works. So essentially, it's kind of interesting because it's sort of like a medieval fight. This is what this BRI reference implementation sort of represents. To where 2 armies are on the battlefield facing each other, like in the olden days, and someone yells "charge," and they both run at each other with swords drawn, and you sort of see what happens from there. It's funny. I say that because I believe it's 26 containers that spin up 13 per participant when you run this reference implementation, because it's simulating both Alice and Bob running the full provide stack each. So like they're each running their own full copies of all of the containers, plus the baseline container, plus the baseline stack for each party. And so that's kind of a lot of containers. And so not all, you have to have at least, I think at least 16 gigs of RAM to run this.
Yeah.
But so like once you're in that directory, you're in baseline examples, VRI1 base examples. If you run npm install, you'll install the package, and then if you run npm test, it's sort of like charge is being is being called, and then you can run make log simultaneously. And what you'll see is the stack spin up for both parties, and there's quite a bit of stuff that happens here initially. So you can sort of see how the provide stack works. There's a pretty decent amount of logging. The ident and the vault service, they depend on one another asynchronously. So there's like some self-healing that happens initially, and once that sort of like solves itself, once they're both available and ready, the tests start, and you'll see like the initial work group deployments, like the work group contract gets deployed, and it's sort of off to the races. Here we go. So it's sort of getting into the test suite now.
So Kyle,
And
couple of
yeah.
couple of people in my team, they reported that their systems were pretty jammed up when they tried that. So do you recommend doing it on the cloud than doing on local laptops?
I mean, I'm doing it on my local laptop right now.
Hmm.
I would say your mileage could vary depending on your machine.
Hmm.
And there is, like it does, we do shell out. For example, like when you run, like we're running a few a few containers here, and so you can, if you don't have enough resources, you can get a little jammed up, no doubt. Um,
I see.
that I would say don't be discouraged by that. I think we're looking into having a more lightweight version of this process to run for folks. But it does show the value of this isn't something that you can take and like use to build. Like this isn't like an app that you will just take and run. This is a simulation of the baseline protocol between two parties,
Yeah.
in like,
Yeah.
and so it's really it's useful. Um, but yeah, there is some inconsistencies from time to time. You see like all of this stuff that's happening, and you see like, oh, here's an invite, here's a verifiable credential that was sent between the parties, and then Alice gets the credential and accepts the invite, and the
Okay.
protocol sort of continues. So it's useful, and you could run it on the cloud, but I think running it locally is important, and so it's certainly would love to hear if folks have issues and what specs you're running, what your laptop looks like that you ran it on, et cetera, so that you can, so you can, we can figure it out for you, and you can participate. Really, it's just a matter of seeing how all of this fits together, which
Hmm.
is, it's really important to see. And so that's how you run through that. That's how it looks when it runs successfully. There's 82 passing tests, and you sort of see at this point, all right, now you could create you could actually create a workflow and plug that into this process, and you're actually sort of off to the races building with baseline at that point. So BRI1 is
Super.
valuable, and I would recommend folks to try to run it and fight through any issues they're having. Make sure you have like at least 16 gigs of RAM. That's definitely recommended. So that's
Sure.
sort of
So
the baseline stack and BRI1.
yeah.
I'll pause there
Mohan has a
for my
question, Kyle. So he has a very quick question, I believe. Can
cool.
containers run serverless?
Uh, can the containers run serverless? I mean, they're Docker containers. I suppose you could deploy them in a serverless way, but I mean, I think Kubernetes is probably Kubernetes or just like the Docker Compose would be the way to go at this point. But you certainly, I don't think there would necessarily be a limitation if depending on what someone had in mind, um, could be possible.
Super. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I've already mentioned there's this REST open source client. That thing is pretty interesting. Let's take a look at that for a second. Let's see how to run it. There was some command. It's brand new. There's some command that there is some command. Here we go. It's this right here. Cargo net git fetch and CLI was needed. So I just want to show this because it's interesting to make sure that the stack. I think the stack should have stopped. See, like once the BRI1 exits, so you don't have anything running anymore. So you're good. The Rust client is very similar to. I want to show this because you'll see that the Rust test suite that we have is very similar to the BRI1 suite in that it stands up some containers and runs some tests. And I don't believe this actually is passing fully yet. I mean, we literally just, it's still like not fully. It's not to a release yet. I just wanted to show it because it's interesting context to BRI1 because we have these other, client APIs that are. Where we're developing kind of robust test suites around our stack, and you see there's 66 tests that are going to run, and there's a handful of containers that are going to run. It's not as many, but it's going to run the baseline stack as well. And so that's it's pretty interesting stuff. And you'll see, I think the test might fail if you run all 66 of them at once. I think there's two. I'm not sure if there's a race condition or something, but we'll see. I think these may fail, but that's part of the fun, right? You see some failing tests, you fix them. I think if you run them independently, they work. We'll see what happens here. So you see here I don't see the stack yet. Oh, there we go. Look, there's the baseline stack that started, and there's some random name of the organization there that where we started the stack, and you'll see there it is. So it's just one stack. It's just one baseline stack for one participant in this case, not both. And you see here there's a good number of tests. But our standard, I think it may just simply be because the baseline container hasn't been deployed like the latest that we've been run, and we'll be open source.
There you go again with the voice.
So that's pretty interesting. I think so you can look at that.
Kyle, the voice. Yeah, the voice is gone again. Hey.
Yeah, yours is a little off.
Scratchy.
Yeah. Let's see here.
It's as if you're using some filter which is not working properly.
What's that?
Are you using any filter or amp which is not working properly? Is there something between? Is there any software? Are you using a mic? Maybe you can connect back again.
Let me check to see.
But you hear us? Oh, now you're back.
Yours sounds weird, really odd too. When that happens, let me do a quick speed test here. I'm getting 700 down right now. Hold on. Yeah, I'm getting like 700 down and 800 up. Should be fine. Let me double check my settings and let me check my settings in Restream to make sure my inputs.
But now this one, but this one is super smooth.
How about this now? How does it sound? Okay. We'll keep going. Cool. It's weird. Yeah, you sound a little weird around the time that you say that too. Okay. So I think the Rust client is pretty illustrative as well. We're still working on that a bit, but yeah, it's pretty cool. You see that all the containers are stopped, and you also see like when BRI1 stops, like from before, you'll see that it gracefully shuts down all the services quite nicely. You see all those connections that are being shut down for Alice, and then Bob. So it gracefully steps down. So it does show like a nice life cycle of the provide stack. And I again would recommend trying to work through any issues you have locally. One thing I wanted to talk through is Vault. So Vault is a. Are we good? Are we good? Can you hear me?
Yes, Kyle.
Okay, so one thing that I wanted to touch on was our Vault service. One thing that someone from the community brought up, around Base Ledger was $5 rinse attacks in Base Ledger, and I said, well, we've got that solved with Vault, but I wanted to expand on that a little bit more today because I think it's pretty important to talk about, and that's how do we solve for this notion where if someone, for example, Kona, were to, let's say they decide to, stake some UBT and run a Base Ledger, validator node. What happens if some, sophisticated criminals find out who at Kona is behind that and decide to do something bad, like, kidnap someone because they know UBT is just mooned and there's this validator that's sitting on a pile of UBT. Well, the Vault we're working on something, a feature that takes Vault to the next level because it's actually built for solving for this very problem. And so Vault can be used to autonomously, really as an autonomous CWAP counter rinse attack protocol for enterprise, using our service Vault and NGS, our partner Stadia, which is a commercial offering from NATS. That partnership, we can actually autonomously separate seeds across data centers. For example, let's say Azure and AWS, and using the HSMs in those different data centers, we can basically keep the seeds separate. And I guess it could sort of look, it would sort of look like a multi-sig at that point. But to do that in a UX that's capable for familiar and capable for enterprise users is an absolute requirement for anyone being able to adopt this technology. Otherwise, it's sort of a non-starter when it comes to safety of folks that are adopting the technology, which is kind of an overlooked thing. But I think we're really thinking of all this stuff, and so it's really exciting. I look forward to sharing more about how Vault can be used to keep folks safe, in crypto, even when it comes to enterprise, especially Base Ledger, which is the future of enterprise L2. Base Ledger is sort of like the provide open source stack. You put that, you have all, those containers that I just showed you. You sort of have that logical stack that you run. That's the baseline protocol. You're running the baseline protocol there, and we're bringing, the SAPs, the D365s. The Salesforces of the world, Excel, and we're doing that by way of our partners, Circle, Microsoft, dApps, DeFi. Again, this last year, a lot of fun working with her on this Excel stuff, and there's really good opportunities. Splunk, another one that we're working closely with. And then so Base Ledger is, like I said, is the provide open source stack, and then it's UBT, it's Universal Business Token. It's obviously the token, the ERC20 issued by Unibright, and they're working currently with the German regulator on compliance to make sure that when we launch the mainnet, it's above board. They're also working on the Lakewood testnet, which is a testnet that is driving some of the dials around the minimum UBT needed to stay, to run a validator, the max number of validators, and other parameters, other network parameters around that. And then we hit the trifecta with consensus being a part of this effort behind Base Ledger, and so provide Unibright consensus really makes a strong foundation for Base Ledger, and UBT is all the gas behind the baseline protocol and the provide stack at that point. So that's really cool. So what is the Base Ledger stack, and how does it, what is it really? And it's really the provide stack, plus there's the baseline container, which is actually isn't pictured here, but should be. So it's ident, privacy vault, and chain baseline. That's Postgres, Redis, and then instead of Cosmos, so Cosmos was the chosen technology. Really, Tendermint though that is the chosen technology for base ledger. Cosmos is a little heavy. If you look at the repo, the baseline core repo, you'll see that it's actually just a Tendermint app, and we can do just like some more code don't lie. I think that we can benefit from here. If only John was here, he would say code don't lie, like one of the. All right, it's early. So Base Ledger Core is the repo. You should definitely check that out. Smash that like button, turn that subscribe, fork that repo.
Absolutely.
So really, and this sort of follows the structure of this repo. So it's written in Golang, much like the rest of the provide stack. It's structured very similarly to the provide stack repos, and you have a couple of commands. Top level node command that is sort of the entry point, and then you've got this folder called protocol, and you got this file called baseline.go, and that thing is the application blockchain interface, which is the Tendermint interface that you use to interact and essentially control the consensus mechanism around blocks beginning and ending, and validators, basically staking. So like, for example, when UBT is staked, either the resolve, after the governance contract essentially on mainnet allows a validator into the network, essentially. This is the mechanism that actually, makes that validator actually applies the validator their voting power on the network. So this is a great repo to check out as well, and also join the Discord. I would say join our Discord for checking out, or for collaborating around the Base Ledger core. You can also the testnet's running. We just restarted regenesis the Peachtree testnet. So I mentioned Lakewood as the testnet that's sort of like a lab for turning knobs, and like figuring out the right network parameters. And the Peachtree testnet is the production grade network that we're looking, to actually deploy as the mainnet, and using the learnings and it, like, for example, those network parameters that are settled on by on Lakewood. So check this out. We need a little bit better, more friendly URL here. The block explorer is a little ugly, but we'll work on that so it's more permanent and a little more user friendly there. So and then there's some smart contracts repo that has the staking contract. That's pretty interesting. And so, all right. Oh, and one more thing. There's a DigitalOcean image that we've created, and it's pending listing in the marketplace. So that should be, I think it's at 7 days at the most. I think probably within 3 to 5 days, we'll probably have a link for folks so you can just turnkey run a node, a full or validator node on the Peachtree testnet. So I'll share more details about that in the coming days. So next steps for Base Ledger. We see this opportunity to really incentivize the entire Ethereum community. And so we've come up with an interesting proxy staking mechanism. I think it's interesting for Base Ledger network validators that could expand the ability for users to secure the network using assets beyond UBT. Now, UBT will always be the base asset on Base Ledger and always be required as gas for transactions. But think about the greater ecosystem and being able to stake other assets. I'll just leave it there. I won't mention any assets by name. There's some interesting opportunities that we've been exploring with various people, and hopefully we'll have some interesting announcements soon. Let's just say for now, what if you could stake ETH to help secure Base Ledger by way of proxy? that is something that we're really excited about and working on. Um, this Base Ledger is going to really enable Base Ledger and the Provide stack together are going to enable enterprise DeFi because Base Ledger is going to really add security for settling ZK rollups at enterprise scale, which is really what's needed for this kind of volume that we're looking at in terms of really like affecting transformational change on the global supply chain. So it's nothing too crazy here. Just global finance, just global supply chain transformation. No big deal. And next step, obviously, in Q1, we'll provide a bright, we'll initialize the governance and launch the mainnet for Base Ledger. So really humbling to be a part of that journey with Martin and Stefan and the team. Very cool. Let's go! Like, look at this team. Like, look at John. Look at his face. He looks so happy here. Look at Jack. Like, look, we got connected with some awesome folks here in the Baseline community. Used to join this community, and Samrat, I really appreciate the time to be here today. Super cool. And if you have an awesome idea to Baseline, reach out to Samrat. We are connected. Okay, so now we can just chat, I think, some more. Thanks for letting me share my deck.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, Kyle, do you think that now we're going to have plethora of developers thronging our GitHub anytime soon, right?
Say that
So with
again?
this, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
No, I just didn't catch that. Sorry.
No, I was just saying with this video, I think a lot of our developer friends will be thronging our GitHub, and they will start testing.
Oh
They will
yeah.
start taking the testnet for a run.
Yeah. And please reach out to us in Slack or anywhere that GitHub. We're always around many hours of the day and times of the night. So hit us up. We'll be
Excellent.
around.
Excellent. So people who are watching us on YouTube, it's extremely important you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so that you keep getting updates that and releases. For
Smash
people who are
that like
watching,
button.
yeah, smash
Turn
it,
that to
destroy it.
the
Yeah, and extremely important, join our community. So if you visit baseline-protocol.org, you're going to get a get involved session, a get involved section. Just go to the get involved section and you'll get links to all our official channels. You'll get YouTube, you'll get Slack, and Slack is where all of us are available and active and responding to a lot of questions. um, awesome. So Kyle, while we have you here on the India show, whatever is public information about the Kona use case, could you also talk a little about what's happening with Kona and how do they see value being realized? And hey Jack, thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming in. Yeah, but
Absolutely. So Kona's a really unique case, and we're really fortunate to be working with Kona. We've been working with Kona now for like 14 months, I think, officially on this effort. And these are digital transformation projects. They're not for the faint of heart. This is brand new tech. But to have an organization like Kona come out and really get behind this effort it's incredible. And so what we've been able to do over the span of those 14 months is really build something that is going to allow them to really adopt and create a more open ecosystem for all all the participants in their raw material supply chain. So bottlers and their raw materials suppliers are in that ecosystem, and you have Kona as the operator of that ecosystem, really looking to not just create efficiencies. That's the obvious first case, is to create these efficiencies. But there's also these new revenue opportunities, that will emerge as well. And so in terms of the progress, we've got the SAP with our partner through our partnership with Unibright and Circle. We helped design the ConUBC connector, which is now certified in the SAP market, and that was sort of the linchpin that we needed in order to actually go to production with this. And
Mm-hmm.
so now we're looking at taking this to production, and I think we'll see some real money transactions this year actually at Kona, and that's our goal, is to see
Okay.
real money, and I say real money, and what I mean by that is not necessarily the finance, like the actual turned into DeFi, like DeFi financing piece of that. I think that's first quarter, perhaps. But yeah, actually the documents behind that though, representing real money and actually could be financed in DeFi. So yeah, I think that'll happen this year. And also, working with Unibright and Circle very closely has been, a real privilege. It's a great team, and yeah, we're going to deliver for Kona. They're pushing to move this into production now, and yeah, it's exciting.
Okay, awesome. And tell us a little more about which are the industries as per you which should pick up baseline first and start running with it. Of course, we went to we spoke about Kona and that's sort of a given. But then what next? Because
Yeah, I
where I'm
mean,
coming from is because there's a lot of exploration going on. Sorry I interrupted you, but just to set up a little more context. So there is a lot of exploration going on which I'm party to, in India as well, where people now want to land on use cases which can really generate some revenue. 2 years back it used to be all about, oh, we'll save costs and we'll bring everybody on the same page. But who wants that kind of transparency? It's like, okay, is that an overkill, or is the solution bigger than the problem? There were times when we were thinking of stuff like that. But now when we become part of explorations, people want to know about new revenue models. So with that context, do you want to highlight some industries which are ripe and ready for adoption of
yeah,
baseline?
I mean, I think cybersecurity is definitely a really awesome opportunity, and with SOC compliance. Yeah, Samrat, I know you have some thoughts there, perhaps. Yeah, I think that's a really good one that we're looking at, and that's really more of, I think, on a new sort of revenue model side versus just like some digital transformation project. I mean, if you look at the global supply chain right now, it's kind of a disaster. And so, what better time than now than to fix some of that disaster, some of that disaster. So that, I do think, you know, I do think the supply chain projects are going to be front and center, but I do also believe that there are new opportunities around, especially around like SOC compliance, for example. Perhaps Jack has some other ideas there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Samrat, you were mentioning like what are common use cases, and Kyle was mentioning the Kona use case, and a part of that is the procure to pay process. That's purchase order, sales order, shipment notification, goods receipt, invoice. Amidst that whole process right there, even just you extrapolate that a little bit, just a purchase order or sales order. When you're asking about use cases and how this can start being applied, when you look at the platforms and the systems of record that we have already been effectively able to baseline, and it, it, it's it's quite understandable how you could apply a purchase order or like a sales order in a number of these various different platforms, whether that be SAP, whether that be Dynamics 365, whether that be ServiceNow.
Splunk.
These are the type of use cases that are permeating very quickly. Yes, Splunk, whatever that might be, these are the use cases that we're seeing most commonly be brought up. We just had a conversation from a Dynamics 365 perspective. When you think about that, you think of anything really across the Dynamics 365 platform and any CRM related platform or process, excuse me. So
Yeah,
I think
service
these are the
now,
ones that we're seeing be
definitely.
very common.
Yeah.
Not to jump around too much, but we had
No,
mentioned
no.
ServiceNow, one of which that we've talked quite extensively about that is representative of ServiceNow, but other platforms as well are service level agreements. and what we're
Yeah.
quickly embarking on from a service level agreement perspective, and to be able to
Yeah.
like remediate quickly change management requests, service management requests, problem
Incidents.
management requests.
Yeah.
That's
Incidents.
that's certainly ever expanding those use cases there. Um, yeah, we've actually been seeing just a number of interesting new use cases pop up. We had one recently coming from a fraud analytics department in a huge bank, interested in how that they could start attacking this from a fraud detection perspective and anomaly
Okay.
detection perspective within their organization. So that's a really new, interesting use case that just came up in the last couple of weeks.
Hmm.
We're seeing this kind of spread in a number of different ways, to be very honest.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
and
cool.
again,
That's pretty
to
cool.
highlight the opportunity here with, for example, Splunk and SOC compliance, I think there's a really cool opportunity there. Um, yeah, to be continued.
Yeah. And yeah, SOC compliance. We have things to talk about, Kyle. Cool.
And
Absolutely.
Samrat, I do think that I think as we move forward, I think like
Mhm.
what there's a ripe opportunity to make it very seamless to help kind of shepherd new users and developers around use
Yeah.
cases that we can very seamlessly deploy. And that's something that, as Kyle mentioned, we've been embarking on a journey to make that onboarding experience very, very
Mm.
seamless for both developers and business users. And so, as part of the question you said, like, what are the most common use cases? That is something that we're hyper focused on right now to make sure that
Awesome.
that onboarding experience is very easy for these
Oh
most
yeah,
common use cases, and then to
shuttles
be able to
coming.
roll that onboarding to these kind of the next fringe ones that are
Yeah.
surfacing and becoming more common as well.
Yeah,
Exciting. Exciting.
And Shuttle's gonna really make that process of joining, and integrating a lot easier. And to Jack's point, there's some additional like opportunities even around the SAP ecosystem to make this a lot easier in terms of the integration and the burden that it places on IT in terms of like, oh, we have to open ports and stuff now, and maybe we don't, right? Maybe there's newfangled things that might come about that make it so you don't have to do that anymore, and you can just
Mm.
do an integration on the front end of Shuttle and configure it right there, and it just works. So that's sort of the UX that we're really driving towards, which is a brave new world if you think about it, but really cool opportunities to accelerate baselining and the experience for users adopting the technology.
Exciting. Exciting. So Mohan is a very regular attendee of the show in India, and unfortunately he's on YouTube today. But he posted a couple of questions. Would you like to take them up? Any of you?
Oh, can Vault be used independently for other uses? Yeah, absolutely.
Good
It's
question.
that's actually a lot of demand that we are seeing is starts at Vault for our Vault service. Some really large organizations that are there's a lot of demand coming out of several large organizations just in particular for Vault, which is it makes sense for that to be a jump off point because it's sort of the first thing you need in order to start base binding. You need a Vault instance, and so yes, and again, Vault is this counter wrench attack ready solution, and so I think it makes a
Okay.
lot of sense to do some education in the market around that technology and that need. There's a real need for this technology to exist and in this way so that executives can feel comfortable and their families can feel safe using the technology and adopting the technology with assets on a public blockchain. Even though like there's other mitigation around like the actual privacy of on-chain privacy. For example, provide payments, sort of shields the transactions and like who's sending the transactions. But then it provide payments to sending them. So then you're coming at me, right? And if somebody is a throat to choke eventually. And so in order to enable the technology, Vault is super important. And yes, it's definitely a pattern we're seeing of people adopting it first and independently.
Okay. Exciting. So I have a little slide to show you, and I think that is something which will which will. Can you see this?
Yes.
And
Okay, cool. So this is a slide I just put together, and on the left you see Mr. Mukesh Ambani. He's the richest Indian and now also one of the top 10 in the world. And on the right hand side you see Mr. Elon, our dear friend from the crypto world. So my question to you is, first let's start with Elon. He's always talking about innovation and going to Mars, etc., stuff like that. So let's talk about baselining and base ledger and where is all this headed. And Mr. Mukesh Ambani,
Mars.
he's one of the most successful businessmen in India, and he's always revenue focused. So we'll talk about Elon first, and then we'll come to Mukesh Ambani.
Yeah. So my perspective is where's all this going? I mean, we called it shuttle for a reason. I think that there's a baseline rocket that's going to take off. In the next, it's already taken off, but I mean, like really accelerate. In Q1, I really see that January Q1 for like real extreme acceleration towards
Okay.
adoption Mars for sure. Yeah.
Exciting. And how about Mr. Mukesh Ambani's perspective? What will be somebody with a revenue bias look at this and say that are we going to stay put and see others moving in my industry, or do you want people to get adopting immediately? Because this
So
guy wants revenue.
yeah, absolutely. So I think that because of the pandemic and how that's changed some things in the global supply chain, I think that it would be a lot harder to justify adopting this technology head first if that hadn't happened. But it did, and so for that reason, I think we're going to see a lot of head first adoption, which will sort of turn that sort of pragmatic approach a little bit on its head because of the opportunities the opportunities for just creating efficiency because it's a real need for real people right now. Is to make things a lot better. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that the pandemic is actually going to play in the favor of more rapid adoption. I think we've certainly seen that already, and I believe that's my take, I guess, on how we'll proceed, how we'll go from here.
and to layer
Okay.
on that, Samrat, a little bit, you made the mention of how do how does this drive new revenue? These two gentlemen that you were showing there are focused not only on the opportunities to make huge operationalization savings within their organization, and come up with new process efficiencies, which Baseline certainly enables. But as you were hitting on, it's like the new
Baseline
business
is
model
gonna
and revenues that
generate
are
revenue.
able to be driven on top of it. It's what
Yeah.
the promise of Web3 enablement, why everyone is coming to the DeFi ecosystem, to the crypto world, to this community-driven type, kind of
Yeah.
exciting drive that we're seeing.
Base Ledger is a new revenue opportunity. So to save your money and make your revenue all in one, there you go.
Get your bags.
Yeah, not only
Get
from that
no
perspective,
bags.
do you come across new enterprise assets that are new higher yielding assets, but amidst the baselining process, you're able to incentivize those ecosystem participants in ways that you weren't able to do so previously.
Yeah.
And so now
Yeah.
you're able to create new higher yielding assets and returns to some of those ecosystem participants, and again, incentivize them in ways that you couldn't do so before. So by doing that, you're able to now drive new revenue models within your organization. And we're seeing that permeate quite often.
Mhm.
And I am certainly looking forward to the day that Elon and crew are ready to baseline.
Oh, they're ready.
Exciting.
They just need a little push in the right direction.
Okay. Maybe this episode will give them some push.
Maybe so.
Okay, so I think with that, we are at the end of today's episode. A rather very interesting episode. Mark, you have some comments?
No, not really. I mean, it's one of those. By watching all of this, if someone were to want to go ahead and take this and deploy it, you would not really need very deep engineering resources to do so. I mean, you would just need to have
Right.
somebody that is familiar with the stack and familiar with the containerization. But getting it up and administering it or running it wouldn't require deep engineering resources at all.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole idea. You know, like I come from a pretty technical background, and you know, the this is the way you build distributed systems. So it is definitely a production ready, you know, production grade stack, and it is. You're right, Mark. It's definitely on its way to being user friendly. So I would definitely encourage all the developers to join the community, join join the devs channel, clone the repos, get involved. And you know, I'm really excited also about the provide stack and how we've recently open sourced those four repos, and how the baseline repo is actually on the heels to be open sourced of those other four, and the opportunity moving forward to turn those into community projects, you know, under the right, you know, governance structure somewhere, maybe perhaps around the EEA or something like that. We'll have to see how the actual structure shakes out, but I'm really excited and interested to collaborate with Wolpert and Dan Shaw and others in the community around that effort.
So I've got another question because I get this question quite a bit since Baseline and the Provide Stack and BRI and all this are within the Ethereum universe, basically. Smart contracts, is that something that that the
Yes.
Provide is going to be able
Yeah,
to?
yes. So in-chain, so that's in-chain. It's the Web3 Swiss Army knife kind of, where you can configure multiple networks. And like, for example, one instance of in-chain can talk to any of the EVM networks. It even talks to Bitcoin. Let's move on. The EVM networks, nothing against Bitcoin. It also talks to base ledger, right? So you have in-chain, it talks to different networks, and it's, you know, fault tolerant, in that it, you know, asynchronously keeps up with the logs, and essentially emits other messages when certain things happen in the stack, so that the baseline protocol can react to different events that happen. So yeah, we're definitely a Web3 native platform, you know, that supports primarily EVM. You know, the richest functionality and the deepest investment that we've made is in the EVM, and so it's a natural fit for what we're doing here with Baseline and Ethereum as a public mainnet.
And to expand to that, Mark, just, you know, as I'm quite confident that you're aware of this, but, you know, in the exit of the processes by which we're able to tokenize, the exit of those are the creation of new smart contracts and or NFTs. So we're at the forefront here within the baseline.
Or just the depositing of a proof. It's not necessarily deploying a new contract every time, Jack, but it could very well be. You're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at the exit of those workflows. Go ahead, Mark.
You know, but basically, once you have a multi-party workflow environment that's saying, all right, we've already achieved, you know, a constant state of synchronization. Now we want to start automating some of our low-level business processes.
Right. And then you just see those proofs deposit onto base ledger by way of provide privacy. So it flows through the stack, and I think a diagram. I need to add an additional diagram to the doc that shows this. That, you know, it deposits, you know, through the provide stack. It hits privacy. Privacy deposits into base ledger. Base ledger accumulates rollups. You know, accumulates proofs there. So there's some period of time where base ledger is actually securing the proofs during some latent period prior to them being rolled up and deposited on layer one chain. So yeah, you know, there's then that you can see how in-chain plays a distinct role in communicating with these different networks along the way. So Yeah, we're proud of what we built. We want to make it more user friendly for developers, and we welcome any and all feedback from the community as we move forward.
Super awesome.
And
Yeah,
last,
Jack.
just to layer onto that, I'd just say that with the bespoke demand that we're seeing coming from some of these large customers, uh, I foresee that there's a likelihood that we will very quickly be in see use cases relative to other L1s as well. Kyle mentioned Bitcoin. I think we're going to, not too distant future, be able to see use cases that are resonant there as well, or on other layer ones by way of some of the clients that we're working with and the way in which that they have embarked on primarily, let's say, the Ethereum journey first and foremost, but in the way in which that they're enabling their respective ecosystems with other layer one technologies, we see that demand is starting to surface up for us to be able to help service some other networks as well.
Yeah, well said, Jack. And so, Samrat, I just want to say thanks. I think we're probably at the time, but I just want to say thanks for having us this morning. It was a pleasure for sure. Look forward to talking more.
Super cool. Thank you so much, Kyle and Jack, for making it to today's show. Oh, you said you did namaste. Thank you. It's I'm sure the Indian community is going to welcome you with a namaste very soon. So now is the time for the baseline tune, and here it goes. And we say bye bye with that.
Cheers.
That's the best.
Thanks, guys.
All right.